Hello, everybody.
大家好。
3, 2, 1, and we're live. Welcome, everybody, to our newest webinar, as always, on Wednesday. This time, it's about virtual social life. Welcome, everybody. Happy to kick off another webinar series on innovation and trends that we can see emerging from China and possibly getting boosted through the current health crisis that is going on. And as always, let me start with a little introduction. So let me see if you can show the presentation here. Yes. So we are Marcel and Miriam, and we're the founders of Dongxi, and Dongxi is a boutique consultancy here based in Berlin, and we focus on innovation topics around digital China and kind of bridging between the East and the West, in a sense of that we help companies to go to China and manage their market entry, but also help companies to learn about what's happening in China. And I think this is the biggest part of what we're doing here in this webinar series, introducing trends and innovation from China so that companies can actually adapt to it and learn from it, and maybe use it for their own projects, and maybe some of the struggles that you're currently facing during this crisis. So as always, we have a very diverse group of people on this live stream. So we have a couple of people who will be watching us on our YouTube, which you see on the left-hand side. This is our YouTube channel, in which we're mostly focusing on investing topics. So we cover a couple of innovative startups from China, which are usually US-listed companies, and we go quite deep into their business model and also their financials and kind of the investment opportunity related to that. And so this is also where we have a coming from mostly US people from the US watching us. And then, of course, we have our consulting work that we're doing here, for instance, giving workshops, giving speeches. We do that mostly in Germany.
Actually, to interrupt here, I'd be super interested where you guys are currently tuning in. So maybe you can send us a message whereabouts you're located right now, and also maybe in which time zone.
Yeah, I already see the first comment here, somebody from Constance. So that's where we started. In Constance is Lake Constance is actually in the south of Germany, and that's where Miriam and I studied business and Chinese. So it's good to see people coming from Germany, from the very part where we did our studies, following us here. And of course, we will also have clients and people watching from China, but it's already late in China. So maybe a couple of viewers will watch this webinar tomorrow afterwards, because it will be saved both on LinkedIn as well as on YouTube. So most people are actually watching it afterwards. Only a couple of people are tuning in live. But usually we get around, let's say, 600 to 1,500 views on our videos, and usually less than 100 people usually during the live session here. And then, of course, people from Germany. So most people may still be at work right now and working, but maybe some of you are already getting off work and have the opportunity to dial in. And then also let us thank our partners here locally, Berlin partner, helping us to promote this event series, and also in southern Germany, the Digital Hub for Chemistry and Health in Mannheim, which is supporting us with this as well. And everyone, please give us a like and a thumbs up, and also write in the comment if everything's working fine, like if you can hear us clearly, if the sound and the video is good, because we're just not following the live stream, of course. We're in the live stream. So that's it for the housekeeping.
No, you forgot an important part.
Which one?
So it's after 4 in Germany, so we can have beers.
Oh, Yes, this is also
This is
a
the
very
year we popped the
important ritual of our event series is that we will be popping our beers because it's kind of a after work drinks event. So cheers to that. Cheers. And yes, of course, this event is, first of all, the live stream, which we're starting right now. And then after the live stream, we also have the opportunity to do a little of a virtual networking. Last time, we actually forgot to send around a link, but this time we promised to do it. We will send you the link in the comments for a virtual networking session after this live stream. So you can have a one-on-one or a group of people who are actually seeing themselves in a video call. And then we're also inviting you to go to network.dongxi.com.
I will post it in the comments right now.
Yeah, Miriam's going to post it in the comments, and let me just do it on the YouTube comments here as well. So this is a network where you can sign up in order to stay in touch with us and get all the information about the stuff that we're doing, the topics that we are covering. And it's also a way where you can post more questions and where you can actually also, announce your own events and your own, maybe even consulting work that you're doing in any areas. So it's really an open way of collaborating in this area.
Wow, we got someone from New York tuning in.
Somebody from New York. Awesome. Greetings to New York. I hope you're not too hard hit with the crisis, but it's awesome that you're joining our event here. Okay, so this event is always about introducing business trends, and we have a series of trends, 7 trends in total, that we're going to cover in this series. And we will give you, first of all, inspiring benchmarks, so showing you some best practices and examples. And for the deeper analysis, we're going pretty deep in this live stream as well, but for the most deep analysis, you should follow and subscribe our YouTube channel, because that's where we really go deep into those topics. And we also have always an expert or a couple of experts coming onto the show and discussing the topic during the event. So this time, who are we having on the show?
This time we're having Sam Lee. He's actually the head for international on Sina Weibo Sport. And Sina Weibo Sport, I'll introduce it later, but it's basically the biggest platform, or one of the biggest platforms, social media platforms in China. And he's from the sports division. So we're looking forward to have him on the show.
Yep, that's really cool to have him. And also we're going to have
Fabian, but we'll introduce him later.
Yeah, so make sure to stick around till the end of the live stream, because the first part will be actually giving you some best practices, so mostly input by Miriam. And then we jump into the expert session. And then afterwards, we also have some FAQs, Q&As, where you can, just keep posting your comments during the session all the time. We try and pick them up during the event, but also later on, of course. And as mentioned, once again, afterwards, we'll have the networking session as well. So maybe, Miriam, you can give us a little introduction about the 7 trends in total, like the bigger series, and then dive into the topic.
Cool. So thank you very much, Marcel. I hope you can hear me as well. So how do we do this? Maybe this way around. As Marcel already said, this is a series of 7 events and 7 live streams, because during the crisis, most people really turned to the internet. So there was a lot going on in the digital economy. And so we uncovered 7 trends that massively changed digital life in China. And we talked in our first session about live commerce. Then we talked about new retail and automated commerce. And this week, we're going to talk about virtual social life. The week after, we're going to talk about tech hygiene in public spaces, and then supported online learning, organizational development, and e-health, of course, which is a very important topic during these times of crisis. That being said, the topics that we covered before, like live commerce and new retail and automated commerce, they're still on YouTube, so you can still find them. Just look for Dongxi with a double I, so DONGXII. And now let's jump right into it. So today we're going to talk about virtual social life. And what we mean by that is basically everything that you do to keep up that kind of substitutes your normal life, your usual social interactions with other people, and that substitutes it on the internet. And this would also include everything like cultural activities as well. And we found this chart, which is super interesting. And it shows the changes in the duration of daily activities of residents affected by the epidemic. This is only China, but I guess China is big enough. And you see from left to right, left is the activity that people spend the most time on during the day. Whereas on the right-hand side, you see what they spend the least time on during the day. And what is very interesting here, I don't know, can you see if I point with my mouse? Is that visible?
Sure. Yep, it's in.
Cool. So you see the line here. I think this is most interesting because this line actually indicates whether or not people are wishing to continue with the corresponding changes, even if the crisis is over. And to no surprise, I mean, we have cooking. So 90% of the people spend most of their days right now in China cooking. But what is also interesting, some of them spend around more than 50% on investment and finance.
Which is actually really good for us because we just started also during this crisis, with our YouTube channel, focusing on investment and finance, and it really took off. And also during this live stream, we will have a couple of more companies that are, involved in the trends that we're currently talking about. And not going into the finance, the investment opportunity here, but in general, that you first have heard about them, and then later on we can cover them more deeply if you follow our channel. Sorry for the break.
And as I was just saying, what is interesting here is not just have more than 50% picked up this trend for them. Also, it's the highest percentage of people who actually want to stick to this new habit. So they discovered during the downtime that they have interest or that they're lacking time in their usual life, in their usual offline life, to do investment and finance. So I find this super interesting. If we're looking at the bigger numbers here, so what people are doing most of the day, we see cooking, we see housework, we see raised children. I guess this is a thing that most of us can relate to. Sleep, relax. I think that's also very important in China. People really embrace sleeping and relaxing, but not in a lazy way. It's just like really embracing relaxation. I think it's really cool. And then one thing which also struck me, I didn't highlight it here, but it's interesting, and I never thought about it, nurturing pets. So looking after your animals is also quite big here. And I think that's because we are looking for some sense of interaction, some sense of warmness, of some living feedback. And I think that's why this number is so high up here as well. Now, in the next chart, we're going to look at what people did during the crisis, during lockdown, for the first time ever. So these are the habits that people tried the first time during lockdown. And let me check here. Here again, the line would indicate the willingness to adapt this habit or this thing in the future. And of course, we see a lot of people have tried first-time live streaming, and a lot of people are sticking to this as well. We also see that people have been doing online banking before. Only like 8% tried this as a new habit, and try online medical treatment. I think my translation is not 100% correct. It was online medical appointment. So getting an appointment with the doctor, and maybe also a first contact point. And people in China are pretty used to this already. And I think at least in Europe, this is not a habit. It's not very common that most of the people will do online banking, and it's not very normal to have your appointment booked online. I think it is for our friends and families because we're all digital natives, but I think in the rest, it's not so common yet.
I think what's interesting is that I see this trend picking up in the US already. So there's one company called Teladoc, which really had very big surge in the share price during the crisis. And well, yeah, maybe the Chinese are the quickest to adapt in general in terms of, something that is also really related to privacy and data and health. And maybe the second will be the US in terms of being more open to innovation and if it's more convenient, something like that. But let's say Germany may take a while. I'm not sure how quickly it will take, but well, at least I think I know some Berlin startups working as well.
Just answering your question. And then we have try car hailing service. That's quite obvious. Only 1.4% tried this as a new thing because most of the people are using car hailing service in China already. Is super common. But as the 74% show here of the willingness to adapt this service in the future, I think it shows it's a great level of adaptability. And I didn't highlight it here, but e-commerce, like purchasing things online in general, is the same phenomenon. Even though we don't have a huge increase of people who tried it for the first time, only 4.8%. We do see that adoption rate is really high at above 70%. So these are just services that really convince people. And lastly, maybe Marcel, you also want to comment on that. Just 2.8% started for the first time doing purchase wealth management and investment products. But also 75% said they were gonna stick to this in the future.
Okay, that's weird because it's kind of contradicting to the first slide in which they say...
No, it's basically 2.8% of the people who've never tried it before.
Now they started.
And now they started, and out of these 2.8% who started for the first time, 75 were convinced by it and will do it again.
Yeah, still, I mean, like if we see the spike in investment, people that care about investment and so on, I was, actually thinking that it's possibly a bigger new crowd that comes into this topic. But here it seems like, it's only like 3% roughly who do it for the first time. So it's maybe just a topic that usually people kind of try and avoid if they don't have the time for it. And now they have the time for it. But it's still not reaching those who didn't care about it before. So it's not really reaching the affluent part of the population who doesn't know about financial investment.
No, the affluent is the rich part.
Oh, yeah.
So it's the other way around.
Yeah, well, but still, it's only 3% who are newly going into that.
Yeah, but it could also mean that there's already a huge part doing it. And then we also see participate online learning and training. 21% have never done that before and picked this up now. But what is also interesting, this also crosses the line because only 57% we have to say, because 57 is rather low here in this chat. Only 57% said they will stick to this habit. So it also shows that almost 50% are happy to go back to university or school and prefer to not do online training or learning. And the same goes actually with remote office software. So even though we have 17 or almost 18% of people who tried it for the first time during the crisis, almost 60% of the people say yes, they would be fine doing it again, but that or making it a habit in the future. But it also means that 40% really want to go back to office. I think that's quite cool. And then obviously, if you're at home, people will start gaming, and gaming is a huge industry in China as well. Most of the big players and also most of the stock-listed companies are even remotely related to some sort of gaming. In this chart, we're just going to look at mobile game apps. So not gaming in general, not desktop, just mobile, or now consoles or something like that. And we see that there was, so on the top slide, we see during the Chinese holiday this year and during the Chinese holiday in 2009, how the penetration increased. So how many people started downloading and using mobile game apps. So we see an increase of 10.5%, which is at least almost a quarter more than it was last year. And as usual with national holidays, when people are staying at home, we will definitely see an increase in mobile game apps because people are just hanging around and getting bored. So the increase itself is not very interesting, but that the increase was significantly higher than last year. That's something that we should look at. And this is even more interesting if you look at the daily time spent in mobile games apps. You see it increased last year by 8.1% on average, whereas this year it increased by more than 25%. So that's just much more than it was last year. And you see all the time that is spent within a mobile game. The mobile game publishers or ad publishers can use this time to push content to the gamers. And then, of course, we need to look at Tencent because Tencent is one of the biggest publishers of mobile games. And if we look at Honor of Kings and the daily active user trend, again, the top line here shows 2020 and the bottom line shows 2019. And we saw an increase over this time of 34%. But then again, last year was also 30% already of more daily active users during the holidays. And what I find even more interesting is the stat if we look at the daily time spent in the game. And you see that we actually see a decrease this year of almost 20 minutes. So people spend almost 20 minutes less in the game than last year per day. And this, I don't think it necessarily means that people got fed up by the game. I think it means that they were preoccupied with other things and they jumped into the app because they wanted to play, but then they got preoccupied with other things like health concerns and this kind of stuff.
Actually, well, I've got one assumption here that could maybe play a role that maybe in general we see a trend to games that are more short-lived. That might be something. I'm not sure, like if we have a gaming expert here in the live chat, let us know. But in general, we see like the big trend towards short video as well. So longer videos are not as trendy anymore as, for instance, what we see on TikTok or Douyin in China. So yeah, might be similar in the gaming industry here.
Yeah, it could be. And then another game is the Game for Peace. We see also a similar increase to last year in the daily active users. It's also a Tencent game. And here as well, we see a smaller decrease of the daily time spent in the app itself. However, it's still not as severe as with Honor of Kings, as you see here. Looking at the direct comparison. And then obviously the question must be, Marcel, what is Tencent as a publisher, what does it do to Tencent?
Yeah, well, personally, I've been invested in Tencent since 2013, I think. So it was a pretty good run. I guess it's almost 200% up since then. And well, in 2019, Tencent has really had a hard time because many games were held back by the government, so they couldn't release them. So you saw that it was going down. And now, well, it's more than a V-shaped recovery in the stock price. So they went through the crisis, obviously also have been down a little bit, well, significantly as most shares have been. But then now they're like even at new all-time highs. So Tencent obviously went through this very well, even though they are still in transition to becoming more focused on cloud services and yeah, becoming the back end of the China, of the Chinternet.
Of the China industry. Yeah, but it's really, actually, yeah. I did a video on Tencent when they had the drop here, just right. It was during their earnings call. Yeah, I was quite surprised. Not so many people picked it up. Let me know why. And then let's move on to the next. Yeah, do you also want to say something about NetEase?
Yeah, this chart is NetEase, and that's also one of the players that you should consider in the gaming sphere in China. And it's actually lesser known than, Alibaba, Tencent, and so on, of course, but quite an interesting company. And they're recently restructuring. And during the latest earning report, they just mentioned that, despite the numbers are not ideal yet, but they see the turnaround happening, and quite interesting company in the news and the gaming area. Maybe for your watch list, if you're investing in China stocks, it's one of the bigger players. I think 5th biggest company as the Chinese listed ADR. So quite big and still less known. And then, you found this one.
Yeah, this is actually one of the biggest game publishers in China, and I think they're based in Shenzhen. Definitely they're stock listed in Shenzhen, and you can see also, even though this stock I think it's one of the 5 biggest, and again, you see that they have been dipping around for a very long time, and they also used the crisis as people stayed home and really played games. And then if we look at the total gaming market during the Spring Festival in 2020, we see that it's a massive market. So just in January 2020, it was worth like 3.8 billion renminbi. And then it grew within a couple of weeks more than 24% to 4.77 billion renminbi during the Spring Festival. And then this means we have an overall year-on-year growth of this industry of 32% or almost 33%. So I think this really shows that this is a really big industry and an industry to watch. And what I personally find quite interesting is that the Chinese platforms are not necessarily just running on the ad revenues. There are some, we know it basically from live streaming, there are some business models that also go with tipping and paying micro fees for content. Do you want to add to that?
That's maybe one of the insights for our clients listening on LinkedIn, or those who are new from the business side. It's actually quite interesting to look at China for revenue streams and new inspirations of where to earn money. We sometimes do that in doing business modeling workshops with our clients, and it's always good to find those inspirations on the Chinese side, because they're much more creative and much more profit oriented than what we see from German companies. So it's a good source of inspiration in general, and gaming market in particular, I would say.
Yeah, and also during the crisis, it's just really good to have like a good diversification strategy. And then what is the next big thing people do when they're bored at home?
You tell me.
They go on social media. So obviously this was also a really trending hashtag, not exactly the whole sentence, but like being bored at home. And obviously,
you know the TikTok hashtag?
No,
bored in a house.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, oh.
Do you know the Douyin?
No.
Yeah, actually, I found so many really good board at home videos in Douyin, but I didn't want to spam everyone. But if you're interested in like funny Douyin videos, like the Chinese TikTok, just PM me. I'll send you some really nice stuff there too, not just in TikTok. Yeah, but when people are not going out, not socializing, not shopping, if they don't do workout in their gym, if they cannot show off their muscles, they use digital means to kind of try to go back to normal and to bring some balance back into their lives and escape the monotony of their everyday life, as you can see with this girl here. And if we're talking about social media, this screenshot was from Weibo as well. If we're talking about social media, of course, we have to talk about Weibo. Weibo is one of the biggest social media platforms in China. It's a merger, I would say, of Facebook and Twitter in China, and it's hosted by Alibaba, so it's an Alibaba product. Many of our clients actually really want a Weibo account because it's like an anchor point, we always say, on the internet, because it's just really a good way to be found, but it's maybe not necessarily a way to engage that much anymore. I think there are other platforms for that, but that's for another webinar, just a side note. But again, what we see here, there is a steep increase of 31%. And if we compare year on year, the daily active users on Weibo increased like 3 times more than last year. So obviously, people really spend time on Weibo during the lockdown. And this also shows very nicely in the daily time spent, which also almost doubled in comparison to last year. And here I just brought you some inspiration about what people posted about when they were bored at home in China. So just to give you a sneak peek into the so-called internet. So here they're obviously having a competition. We see ping pong, the kind of national sport. This guy is fishing in his living room. A lot of social media memes, animals, disco, a lot of. This one is really funny, I think, because Marcel didn't recognize it before, but he's basically mimicking the people on the street making the food. He says he's going to Shouji Academy, which means he's going to Cell Phone Academy today. And then people are shouting out of the window because they want to entertain and want to be entertained and want to get in touch with other people and say, like, open the window, I just want to talk. Yeah, so this is one sneak peek into the overall activity of social media, what to do when you're bored at home. But there were also some really, really cool activities. And dancing, for example, is a huge thing in China. And there are so many memes about dancing people on the streets in China because it's such a big part of the culture. And I love how people turned this into a digital experience as well, as exercise classes have boomed online over the recent weeks. I found this video extremely nice because it's been put together by many people from all over China. I hope you can hear it as well. And they're basically dancing together. And it's kind of a symbol of optimism. It's very cultural at the same time. It's very peaceful. It's very positive. And it's just like putting some task and light into the whole situation. It's so cool, isn't it? Can you see they're like actually dancing with each other? Okay, we don't have to watch the whole video, but I think it's really nice. And if you like the video, I can share it with you later on as well. This is a really nice example. And then, of course, we have shitload of sports. People get so creative about sports. You see curling here. There's curling championship in the living room. I really want to do that. And then, of course, Nike also jumped on the board. Well, just by the way, partially these videos are from Douyin, but we're not introducing Douyin in this session anymore because we already introduced it in the live streaming session. So if you're interested in Douyin, please check out our first webinar here. This is what Nike did. They set up a series with their trainers about workout things that you can do at home. I think that's pretty nice too.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I think the way the guy like shows it and like engages with the people is quite like I feel like I'm in his living room. And then Nuli. And then we have, of course, a little bit more creative stuff from, oops. So she's playing table tennis. Also another prejudice found to be true. She's training table tennis against herself on against the mirror.
Pretty skilled.
Yeah.
And nice house.
Yeah.
I wonder where it is.
I think she's overseas Chinese. And do you want to add?
No. Go for it.
And this is the perfect point in time to introduce our today's guest, which is Sam. We already introduced him, and he's the head of international from Sina Weibo Sport. And what they're doing is, I think he's going to introduce it himself in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Oops. All right, Sam, thank you so much for tuning in. We're so happy to have you on our live stream. We met in person already in China. Now you're in New Zealand. Maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit, who you are, where you are right now, and what you're doing.
Sure, thank you, Miriam. My name is Sam Lee. I'm the head of international for Sina Sports. It is one of the largest digital media sports platforms in China. Also, we have Weibo, which is the largest open social media platform in China. It's similar to Facebook and Twitter in the West, and has about 500 million monthly active users, about 200 million daily active users. So it's one of the biggest social media platforms there. I'm in charge of everything on the international side, so from cooperations with rights holders in terms of media broadcast on our sports website, to getting everyone onto the social media platforms. So that means foreign teams, leagues, athletes, brands, media. So we have some of the biggest names. We pretty much have everyone in the sports industry on our social media sites. And then we also create our own offline events. So we have a FIBA endorsed 3-on-3 basketball tournament. That's the largest in the world. We were in 185 cities in China last year and 3 cities outside of China. And so with that, there's cooperations with FIBA, there's cooperations with our international event operators. And we also work with international broadcasters, because at the highest level of our competition, there are quite a few international basketball players, and they're some of the best players in FIBA. So we do send that media right, that package to broadcasters from around the world. So we had ESPN last year down here in Australia and New Zealand. We had all of Asia covered, and we had some coverage in Europe and in America as well. So wearing many hats, and it all keeps me very busy and keeps me very interested. Before this gig, I was with the NBA. First started off as in the legal department, so previously I was a corporate lawyer, and then slowly moving over to the digital media side, on the business side. So that's kind of me. I grew up in the Bay Area in San Francisco, and then moved to China right before the Beijing Olympics. Was hoping to stay about a year to watch the Olympics, and here we are, and still around. I mean, it's a very, very interesting place.
It's the first time I moved to China as well. Yeah. And what did you do during those days or months that you couldn't run the offline events?
So from a sports digital media perspective, I mean, it was somewhat business as usual, and it's pretty much what everyone else was doing around the world, which is covering the event, covering sports from the coronavirus angle, right? So when leagues started shutting down, when certain leagues tried to restart, whatever news there was to cover, we were still covering them. And then from the event perspective, there really wasn't much except to try to plan for the new year, even though there are so many unknowns. But social media is a whole different animal, right? So we did a lot on social media, of course. We saw our numbers in terms of viewership go up by, I think, 30%. During those few months that China was in lockdown, and it's the same thing that's happening in the West with Netflix and everyone experiencing very high traffic with everyone just sitting home and staring at the phones. And so one thing that we initiated from a sports perspective was a hashtag that basically said, well, what are you doing at home, right? From a fitness perspective. And so we use that, and we have people coming in to, I think we did about 160 million views on that, basically with people telling us what they were doing during the virus, during the lockdown. And we had people telling us, hey, I'm sorry, it's the other one actually.
Oh, sorry.
You could show that one. So this is, I'll talk about this in a second. This is the second one that we did a little bit later on. But the first one, we basically had people telling us what they were working out, or I don't know if you heard, there was a one guy who ran 50,000 laps around his living room. I thought that was really cool, and he posted basically the GPS map. When you do like Map My Run or whatever, there's a map, and it's just like a lot of circles. And he ran basically a marathon around his living room. So that was quite interesting. So this is kind of on Weibo what it looks like when you have a hashtag. So it's a little more sophisticated than the hashtag on a Twitter page, because this basically becomes almost a topic page. And you can have the owner. So if you look on the bottom there's a logo that says Sina on it. So we're the owner of this page. And then we can use it to narrate everything that happens on this page. So we can highlight certain types of content. We can interact with the fans of this hashtag page. We can do polling. We can do a whole group of tools that we could use on this particular page. So a lot of brands, a lot of events actually just use this as almost a mini site, if you will, right? An official site where people can really flock to. And so during all the big events like World Cup and NBA Finals, I mean, these hashtag pages are where people go to find some of the best available content. So that's what we did on the sports side during the first part, and then the second event that we did, which was much bigger. I mean, we ended up with I think the total views is over 15 billion views, and that's one that's not just sports, but across the entire social media platform. And it's about after the virus has basically subsided in China, what was happening in the rest of the world. So Weibo obviously is a platform, a social media platform where probably 99% of the content are in Chinese. But that doesn't mean that we don't have overseas users. We have obviously a very large Chinese diaspora around the world. And what we did here was we actually went out and solicited these overseas Chinese to talk about what's going on around the world during this virus period. And obviously, the users in China was very much interested in seeing what's happening around the world from the lens of just regular Chinese citizens who lived abroad or traveled abroad. And that was actually really interesting because it's different than just getting the news, right?
It's super authentic, right? And it says in the title, so the hashtag itself is more translated like diary, no?
Right. So it's basically diary of people who are living abroad. And I think we had, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think we had over 50,000 or 100,000 users who submitted videos. You can see the first post here, the top post here is a video of a guy. I don't know where he's based, but videos.
I think it's this.
Okay. Hard for me to see from here, but yeah. So we and then we separated. Within the hashtag we have sub hashtags. So we have ones for different countries. We have one for Germany. We have one for UK. We have one for America. And basically all the Chinese overseas Chinese who are living in those places will contribute to that. And these are just ordinary citizens that that we found, and we encourage them to do this, and so that they can share their stories. And there's a lot of stories, right? And that's what people really like. So that was an extremely popular event, and it really kind of captured the people's attention for quite a while there, because you tend to whenever there's a panic, you tend to have a lot of gossip and rumors and all that stuff. So this is a way to really kind of for people to tell their true stories, right? So we had a lot of people who not only turn the cameras to themselves, but turn the camera outside their balcony or their house or whatever, just to show people what it really looked like, right? You have a lot of people saying, well, in UK, hey, we don't know what's happening, and then you have people showing, what's happening on the streets, and so it's pretty realistic, and I think that's what people really liked about it.
Cool. Thank you very much, Sam, for tuning in on this week's webinar. I hope to see you again soon in person. But other than that, enjoy the time with your family in New Zealand. I think you deserved it as well. And it's also maybe a good time to practice like real social family bondedness, I would say. The other day I had a call, a conference call, and obviously the call started with, how are you guys doing? And one of the colleagues said like, I'm doing really good. It's the first time I met my family and they're quite nice.
Well, one of the funny stories I heard was the travel industry predicting that after this is over, business travel will definitely come back. And the reason is because a lot of the businessmen would definitely want to go back on the road, and their wives would definitely want them to go back on the road, so they're out of the house. So I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, it's better for the family sometimes.
Yeah.
On good work.
Well, thanks so much, Miriam. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Hope to see you soon. Wish you all the best.
All right. Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, now just end.
All right. That was Sam. And as you saw, we pre-recorded this video just before because Sam is actually in New Zealand right now because he's stuck there because of the lockdown. He can't
As we are in Berlin.
Yeah, he can't enter the country anymore.
Oh man.
Yeah, so so his wife, I think, is from the US and is from New Zealand, and he's I think from the US, and they were just having the holiday or spending the holiday, and they just wanted to stay for a couple of days in New Zealand, and that's why he also just packed for a couple of days. And he told me later on that he had to even buy new clothes and stuff because he can't just move. Like he's stuck. But then again, I think New Zealand has 20 cases. So it's probably one of the safest places to be right now.
Tough times.
And then if we're talking about sports and sports being a part of our digital life, we definitely also have to talk about Keep. I don't know if you heard about Keep before, but Keep is basically not a live streaming service. It's a sports provider, a membership provider, where you can have online training. And it's one of the quickest growing startups in China right now. And I think originally they're from Beijing. And I'll just show the website here. You interrupt me if you want to add something to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely China's top fitness platform, and they brought all their offline classes to online, and they do free live streaming on their Douyin, as you know, which is the Chinese version of TikTok, and they're really helping people to stay fit and healthy. But the company also gained more traffic and exposure during the crisis. So when they're offering their membership or their service, not the membership, but like the training for free, the live training online for free, effectively what they're doing is they're pushing their market value because they are collecting new users, right? Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you have another slide for it, but the interesting part about the product is, maybe we should do a separate video on them because they're so interesting to watch. Also, if you look into their app, how it's structured, is that it's also very much focused once again on monetarization, which you usually don't see so much in Western apps. So, for instance, if you go to, I don't know, Runtastic or Training or, those workout apps, you may be able to purchase a plan, but that's about it. That's as much upselling as they do. But on Keep, it's entirely different level. It's also much more about the community as well.
Yeah.
So really interesting from the business model point of view. And one of those virtual models that should be thriving after this crisis, I would say. Unfortunately, not stock listed yet, right? Yet.
No, and I think maybe they won't as well. Because they just raised their last round, I think, at the end of 2018, so which is already a while ago, and they're doing really well internationally already. I think that they are not perceived as being a Chinese startup, even though they have the biggest success in China. And yeah, as it says here, they raised already 6 rounds. They raised a total of 170 million. And thanks for ruining my slides, Marcel. You already went through.
Oh.
And what they experienced during the crisis was before everyone had to stay home in lockdown, they had in the Chinese iOS App Store version, they were on the number 75 within their category, and they jumped to just within 1 week of everyone staying home to the 51st position in the iOS App Store. So they just got like really, really good free marketing. And in the first couple of weeks where they were offering the live streaming for free and the courses for free, they already generated 5.65 million views. So these are all people that they can retarget and that they will probably have as a membership in the future. Now, I also want to introduce you to another startup, which I find really interesting. It's actually one of our viewers showed me this, and I think it's a Berlin-based startup. I don't know much about it. It's Waha, but I do know that the technology is also coming from China, and I think it's maybe like Bertolt introduced us the last weeks. If you remember in one of our other webinars, he said that in his company, they really like to look towards China to adapt new business models and see how they can innovate and monetize on new business models. And I think this is just such an example. I don't have any personal contact with them, and I don't really know about their strategy, but I really just want to show you the product here, because I think this will be a huge trend for the time after the crisis. So basically what they're doing is they are offering like the Peloton, like the bicycle. They are offering the mirror here that is connected to a virtual service where you also have your personal coach, which is not necessarily virtual. And the coach will help you to do the exercise, and you can also exercise by yourself. And it's all in this smart mirror that you will have at home. So it's kind of an IoT approach.
How much is it? Because it's
I
really,
think it's
really hardware
60,
dependent,
yeah.
huh?
And it is really fancy as well. It looks really nice.
Yeah.
I think it's 63 euros a month. I checked it out, of course.
Okay. So
But
it comes as a subscription model. You don't have to purchase.
It's like the Peloton.
Yeah, okay.
It comes with a subscription. I think this is such a smart model, and this is like more hands-on.
And it's made in China, like the tech.
I think so. Yeah, I'm not sure. But I've seen this stuff in China before, that you have like the smart mirrors in the hotels that will help you do your things. So it's quite related. And then after social media, after having several competitions and learning skills from home, of course, people also turn to short video platforms. After they've been working out, they just want to relax. Oops. And that's where ET comes in. And ET is one of the biggest video streaming platforms in China, and they also increased more than 10% during the crisis. And this is also a much higher increase than they saw last year. And if we look at the daily time spent on ETE, that's just actually around 10% more, so not that much. And what can you do on ETE? So I brought one video, actually 3 videos of 2 different shows that ETE themselves came up with. And this first one is they are KOLs and micro KOLs, so influencers and key opinion leaders who are working in specific fields, and these 2 are working as singers and songwriters. And what they did is that people in a live stream could apply and give as a gift to their friend a song sung directly from one of the interpreters. And I'll just show you a quick excerpt of this. And I think it's a really nice way how people start engaging. So he's introducing now and saying like, so now I'm calling this and this, that person because her neighbor applied for her. and says she's
sure.
yeah,
Must from Beijing.
yeah, I think it's from Beijing.
Okay.
And now he calls this girl, who is apparently the biggest fan.
喂，你好。喂，你好，请问是旭旭吗？
She's not very excited yet.
你好，就是你有一个朋友，他
And he's saying, so you have a friend who ordered a song for you. Do you know him? He's living in this other building. And she goes like, oh no, you are this person. Why didn't you tell me? And then it goes on basically, and he's obviously embarrassed, and he's singing the song for her. And at the end, he says, and I think this is really Chinese, and this is very typical for the Chinese internet as well, to show so much empathy. Look, so what he's saying in the end is like, look, we should all stick together and really make some good moments if we can. And I'm so happy to stick with you guys through that. And then I have another example of the same show. And what is interesting, I think, is Itzy came up with these concepts by themselves. So they're real competitors to other live streaming platforms, and of course competitors to TV, because they are bridging the gap between very entertaining and user engaging concepts here.
Tanya Becker's asking if it's for free.
Itzy, yeah, Itzy is for free. It's like YouTube actually, but they do have a paid plan if you want to eliminate the music. Sorry, the ads. I'm sorry. So she's basically singing her song for this guy who's one of her fans. And basically the approach is just like spreading a good mood, entertaining people, engaging with them, making them call in their sessions, and doing something together with them. And obviously this is the karaoke, the KTV approach adapted. And there are also other formats where people can sing together. And also on ETE is another format where they also have two hosts. Not just one host, but two hosts. And the hosts are always setting up a challenge that users and viewers can actually submit up front. So they can, they will set up a challenge, a sport challenge, and then influencers or micro influencers have to go through this challenge. And it's really super entertaining. So here are the rules. You have to do 1 minute that, and then these are the participants. And they're fighting in a Zoom call live against each other. Yeah, now they're gossiping a little bit about the participants.
Are we gonna come out more trained of the lockdown or less trained?
I don't know.
That's
If we
question.
trust the first chart that we looked, people are not so keen actually on working out at home, even though that's the most content you find online. I'm not sure. Yes, and then we also brought another topic about ETE. Maybe Marcel, you want to introduce this, because ETE is actually, I think, NASDAQ listed.
Yeah, it's one of the companies that you could actually invest in if you want to. And well, they're obviously got a little bit hyped in the West, of course, as being the Chinese Netflix in a way. And as we know, that Netflix is also super, upcoming and fast growing. Lots of people thought it's interesting to invest in ICE as well. And they're actually part of Baidu, so a bigger company in China. And thereby, prominently backed. But what's currently going on is that there are people who are betting against the company, who are saying that the company is actually fraud and they're faking their numbers, for instance, user numbers and revenue numbers, and they're possibly reporting wrong numbers. And thereby, if you invest in this company, you are running risk that you are investing in a fraud. And so there's a couple of people who are kind of betting that the stock will fall dramatically in the next couple of months, maybe to come. And these are not no names, or it's famously being the way of betting against those companies called short selling. And this has been brought to life by the currently most famous short sellers called Muddy Waters, who are actually also part of bringing down Luckin Coffee, one of the hyped coffee brands in China. Similar accusations saying that the numbers are actually not true, which in case of Luckin Coffee turned out to be correct. They have been faking their financials, and now Ichi is kind of facing the same allegations here, and possibly, well, we don't know what's going to happen, but if you are invested in this company or looking to invest in this company, be aware that it can be quite a risky investment here. So that's part of the life of investing in companies that are far away and that are possibly cannot be enforced in terms of shareholder rights here. So that's one of the fights that's currently going on between the East and the West when it comes to ICE.
Just another fight. And then I found this another really cool example. I mean, social life is also about love, about having a partner. And I wanted to find some numbers about dating apps and this kind of stuff, but it was really, really hard to find. However, what I did find was really cute. So a couple of couples are live streaming their wedding right now because it's usually a big thing in China. And if you're getting married, you will probably have around 200 guests, and the guests will give you so-called hongbaos, which is the red envelope. And the red envelope actually means that there is money inside. And but if they only have a remote wedding and they cannot have a real wedding in that sense, they also won't get the hongbao, the red envelope. So it's a real cool thing for them to live stream their weddings. And this couple actually received over 5 million views, and people were excited to attend their wedding. And it's really a celebration. It's really exciting thing. And people are celebrating that they're having this wedding on the internet. So.
And you can send the hongbaos?
Yeah, you can send the hongbaos. Yeah. That's the advantage for them.
Yeah.
See?
So professional. Like always, yeah. Marriage things in China are super important. Wow.
厉害. And then another thing, and obviously everyone knows this, we cannot go out anymore. We don't have any nightlife anymore. But what they did in China is, the first example that I'm going to show you is a party that has been supported and thrown by Absolute Vodka. And they just launched this off live stream event through Douyin, and just look for yourself how they've done it. So they asked the DJs to play. And then you could purchase vodka and have your own party at home in the meanwhile. And you could also, of course, tip the DJ.
How fast is it delivered?
I don't know. Probably within a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
And this is from Tex, a Shanghai club. They've done a similar thing. Yeah, and these sessions actually went on for many hours, so it's crazy. But I really like the creativity and the spirit.
I mean, that's like Boiler Room in Berlin as well.
Yeah. yes, but obviously there are funny things, there are happy things, and but sometimes people just really feel alone at home, and this is a really great example about what people can do, and a trend that emerged in China when you're alone at home. So what you can do is you can order for someone else or for yourself with a couple of cents on Taobao a virtual AI that will call you and talk to you about any topic that you decide, and just makes you feel like someone's actually caring about you. And so what people did is, for example, they bought this AI or this bot to send it to someone as instead of a gift, like I send you this AI to talk you into sleep. And in this example, the girl is trying the service, and you'll see that she orders the AI, immediately gets called by the AI, and then she's surprised by the sexy dark voice, or not like low voice from the caller, and she asks him whether or not he can make a little bit of a higher voice, because I think she's a little bit embarrassed how sexy it is.
已经下好了单，然后定好了性别，然后我也给他我的联系方式。哦，有人来加我了。Hello， 哇哦，好低呀！你试试高一些，我觉得哇塞！是，你说的对。
So she's really surprised how engaging this AI is. So that's really cool. And I think it's just about time to let Fabian into the call. Oh, connection is dropped.
Yeah, seems he dropped out of the call. I'm not sure if he's with us right now and if he can join the call or not. Shall we give it a try, or shall we move on to the next?
There's a question.
Oh, there's a question. Yeah, we have this. A couple of comments were actually about how dystopian everything is looking, and I kind of agree to that. It's really, I mean, when I'm in China, it also always feels a little bit dystopian in a way, in a cool and in a bad way. It's because everything has been built up so quickly, and then you have lots of obviously monitoring, and everything's digital and so on. So it kind of feels a little bit awkward in some ways when you travel as a Western person there, because it feels so different to everything else that you know. And also those kind of solutions that are now emerging and actually will be maybe more adapted in the West, in my opinion, truly look more dystopian than what we've had before. And I think that's not all positive. Definitely, it's also kind of in a way, I don't know how you say it, but it feels a little bit cold. Of course, of the social distance, it feels cold. It's very tech driven. And yeah, as we mentioned before, people in China mostly they don't mind about the privacy issues and so on, whereas we in the West, we might do. But now I can feel like in a general discussions going on about how we fight this illness, I see lots of acceptance suddenly in Western countries about, lockdowns, rules, social distancing, maybe also, for the more remote solutions like remote sports and, everything that we just introduced that we see trending in China. So it's really interesting to see what will actually stick also here in the West, and what will just be driven forward in China.
Yeah. I think what is funny is also a little bit the silver lining that I might have, that we are all realizing that we depend more on each other than we thought we would, and we are trying to fulfill that need with digital solutions. And yeah, it's funny how this is just kind of the silver lining of this crisis, and also the spread of the crisis itself. So SARS, for example, it spreaded much slower because globalization 10 or 12 years earlier wasn't that strong yet. People didn't travel back and forth between countries and continents all the time. So the privilege we have is also the downside of things. Do you have any other questions?
No, it doesn't look like it right now.
Cool.
Anyways, just shout any questions that you're having either on LinkedIn or on YouTube. We will be watching on both devices, so feel free to send us questions.
Because if not, then I'll have another hypothesis that I really want to discuss with you, because what I see in China already these days, and I'm really jealous. Actually, I talked to a friend of mine who's a professional boxing trainer in a fitness club, and she's working in Shanghai in the fitness club, and she told me that everything is back to normal already. They're not just doing online classes anymore. They're also doing live classes, and it's actually group classes. It's not individual classes. And so I'm really jealous that life is back to normal already in China, whereas here it's not. And I brought a couple of examples. So here, the palace in Beijing is opening already. But again,
Forbidden City.
Forbidden City. There are much less people allowed than anywhere else, and also Disneyland is opening, and you see everyone has to wear masks, and they have dedicated spaces on the floor, which is a little bit frustrating, but it also shows that life goes on, and it kind of goes on offline. And my hypothesis would just be, even though I found this study where people say like 100 host cities of international events around the globe think that the virus outbreak will have a low impact on 2021 events, is actually almost 60%, but this also means that 40% think that it might have a long-term impact. And so my theory would be, if you can't do the international bigger events anymore and the travel anymore, maybe it will go more into local and regional sport events, or events in general. And there's just this hypothesis that I put here, looking to Sport Total TV, which is actually a German platform, and they're live streaming, I think, fourth and the lower football leagues. So if people are more going to local events, maybe these kind of services will also be more popular and spring up and have an advantage here. Yeah, so that's actually the topic that I wanted to discuss with you. So how do you want to proceed?
You mean if we bring in Fabian in the call, or?
Yes.
Yeah, let's try. I mean, let's see if he works, if his mic works and everything. Hello, Fabian. Can you see us? Hey.
Yes, I can see it. I think
how's it going?
Well, right?
Where are you?
I'm right now stuck in Amsterdam, but I'm in Amsterdam right now.
Cool.
What can you do in Amsterdam? Are you what are you allowed to do, and what are you not allowed to do?
To be honest, I have no idea, because I kind of follow more the rules how China does it. Because the government is here. They're kind of on a smart lockdown, so they're not really on a lockdown already since March or so. So everybody can still go outside when they need fresh air, or when they walk with their dog, or whatsoever. And I think since Monday, all the hairdressers and these type of shops went open again. And from the 1st of June, even more is going open. But I don't know. I'm already quarantining since early March. And I think I've been outside like 4 times or something like that, just to get my groceries. So it's a tough. Yeah, it's tough, but
what are you doing?
Fine.
Like to stay. Well, we want to talk about mental healthiness, but what are you doing? Like 4 times is nothing.
No, it's not a lot. Now the last days, I'm at least planning to go out a little bit more again. But yeah, I've seen it's so busy here out of the street, as I'm like, okay, I'm just refusing it if there's no need. What I'm doing is I'm trying to relax quite a bit still. So I really try to structure my day for as far as I can structure it, because it's tough. How longer you stay inside, how more disorganized kind of your day is going to be. For my work, it has been no problem, because for the last years, I think for the last 3-4 years, I've been working remotely everywhere, and our company is a remote first company, so there's nothing different actually for me. It's the only thing that I'm not going out that often anymore, but the rest of my life is pretty much the same. I used to travel a bit more, but that's also fine. Actually, right now it has been more positive for me in a way, because you can kind of focus again and look at the things you have done in the past. What are you currently doing, and what do I want to do next, and how can I pivot my business or my other stuff, or even personally, where do I want to work on more? So actually it has been, for me, pretty positive. But yeah, I hope we can at least go out soon more in the next few months.
Yeah, well, I think we're feeling the same, but I think, well, maybe you can tell everybody a little bit like the different kind of ventures that you're working on. Some of them connected to China, maybe some of them not connected to China, but still with the trends that we're talking about, you know, like virtual social life kind of seems to be related to that. And maybe your experiences around, you know, what's happening during this crisis with those trends. For instance, I saw you were doing something on Minecraft.
Yeah, that's actually pretty interesting. Like I'm having, like, I would say two different ventures. Oh, I'm reading this. Two different ventures, and then I running kind of a nonprofit on the side. So this nonprofit is really related to mental health, where we build a platform where people can basically take their therapy sessions online. But for us, it's very important that there are different types of therapists. So usually you have these online platforms which is more focused on counseling, but counseling is just like one type of therapist. Like there are so many different, you have psychoanalysts, psychotherapists, psychiatrists, whatsoever you need. So we're trying to help people to find the right help they need based on their symptoms. So we're still very much developing that. So that's kind of the nonprofit. And then, but a lot of influence from Asia. I've been living in Asia for quite some years already, the last few years, and taking a lot of learnings from there, also partly from China. And then my other company is like helping Western companies getting into China for Douyin, kind of since the app started back in 2016. Actually, we started the venture 2 months ago with my co-founder, who is Chinese, to help creators become better creators, basically. So we started an incubator, kind of all remotely, with creators all remotely. And yeah, right now we signed almost 20 creators, which we directly manage. So we do some talent management and starting companies with them. And that actually has been very successful because TikTok has made, so we do that, by the way, for TikTok, but as well for Douyin. TikTok has made a huge growth within the last couple of months, and we really have seen that in the growth of the creators we directly manage right now. And we're playing a little bit with social commerce as well in the European market. Where we take a lot of learnings from China, how Douyin developed there and how that's way more ahead with social commerce, for example. And we've launched 4 different brands already with our creators, where some of them directly sold out within a day or within a couple hours, all their products already. So that has been pretty successful. So that's really much on the creator side. So that's where I've been busy with.
It's kind of also the Ruhan business model, right? If you know them, like for,
yes, correct.
It's more on Weibo, I guess, but yeah.
Yeah, it's very similar to Ruhan. We're looking a lot at that type of company as well. What we don't have is we don't own the accounts. That's kind of what Ruhan more does. We're more like kind of incubator. So you can kind of see us as a VC incubator where these creators apply for us, and we will help them to start their first businesses and make their first revenue and grow. So that's kind of the structure how we do that. And we try to learn and take a lot of initiatives from the creators we directly work with. So one of those initiatives was, hey, we do a lot of fan meetups, but now we cannot do that because of the whole coronavirus. So let's organize an event digitally. And then we have a few creators who are a bit more into gaming, and their fans are a bit more into gaming, who play a lot of Minecraft. So the idea came actually from 2 of our creators we directly work with. They said like, hey, let's organize that event in Minecraft. So we co-organized that together with the creators to structure everything, set up the event, and basically all the proceeds. So the event was for free, so people could join it for free, but they could buy like a VIP ticket, so they could chat with influencers, or they can have a voice call or voice chat with influencers for a VIP plus ticket. That's kind of the way how we structured it. And then a couple of the biggest Dutch influencers attended that event in Minecraft as well. So they could take screenshots and stuff like that. with the creators and directly have a conversation with them, and that worked super well. And all the proceeds went to a charity for mental health under youngsters, because mental health is a really tough topic right now, definitely for also young kids. So that's, all the proceeds went there, and we had, I think 1,500 people in the game, something like that. 1,500 people joined that Minecraft game. So it was a little bit, we got a few DDoS attacks, which is a pity, but that's very tough, to get around that. But that was really cool. And then like we had companies sponsoring in banner, like banners inside the game where their logos were on and stuff like that. It's really, the whole game was specifically designed for that event. So that was pretty cool. So we're looking really much at these different initiatives from creators as well to start stuff with that.
Cool. And how long did it take, like from having the idea to organizing it? Because it looks like a really extensive event. Yes, it took 2 weeks. So from 2 weeks from ideation to actually execution to the whole event for all the applications and everything around it, from building everything from scratch. Because usually in Minecraft you have like just the land and then you have to build it with blocks. I don't know, I'm not a Minecraft player, but that's at least for what I noticed. So within 2 weeks, around 2 weeks, everything from scratch to something. And that's what we try to do a lot with the creators, actually build MVPs really quick and go to market very quick because they have the reach, these influencers. Yeah.
And is this something which you see, like particularly the Minecraft one, staying after the crisis? Or do you think, well, it's kind of, now it makes sense, but later on people won't do that anymore?
No, it will stay. Definitely gaming is huge already. So definitely within games, it will stay. I think where we have to look at more like in the more general events where you have like to see if we're going to have more online conferences. I'm pretty curious if that actually will happen. Or more like webinars and these. So basically that kind of keynotes are all in small bits and then or sold or distributed through LinkedIn or whatsoever. But in gaming, definitely this will continue. But what we learned actually is that there are huge potential, because if there's so many people in a game, you can sell products or in-game products or banners within the platform itself. And that's actually very interesting when you organize something like that. Like if you do it offline, you will have to print a banner and it costs money. Yeah. In a game, it's just there. So the profit margins are way higher. And what the youngsters, they prefer that. They're just at home, can tune in when they want it. So I think it's definitely viable for a long time. And we're looking at also doing it more with the influencers we work with right now. But I think it will definitely stay for different industries. Yeah.
Yeah. And the audience, is it international, or do you target a specific audience participating in
this was hyper targeted on the Netherlands because the influencers we worked with for this project were mainly in the Netherlands. So it didn't make sense to make it global. But it's also more risk if you do it global, definitely for server, like the whole backend, how a game is hosted like that. It's a bit more risky. If we now already had a couple DDoS attacks with like a small Dutch event, I don't want to know when you do this on a global scale. It was just on the Netherlands only right now. But we're exploring to do this in different countries as well.
Cool. I mean, like you are also, for the context, you're also traveling around between Europe and China quite a bit, and you're very familiar with the Chinese market as well. Is there anything else that you've seen taken off from China, or what's been the development on Douyin recently in China? Is there something particular going on? I mean, there's always a couple of more functions coming on Douyin first before they get introduced now in the West. I mean, now TikTok finally kind of takes off in the West as well, but still lots of functions haven't been introduced here, for instance, e-commerce, right?
Yeah, so TikTok, I would say always like around 3 years. Douyin is 3 years ahead of what TikTok is. And definitely for Europe, it's even a bit more slower than that. Like in the US, it's also a little bit more slower because the adoption rate in Europe is just lower than in Asian markets or in China specifically. TikTok is now really taking off. So I think it's becoming more of a major platform right now. They have the downloads. I think now the retention of the app is really important, that people keep using it and stay relevant. And there is where we're trying to contribute as well. That's why we work directly with influencers to develop themselves as creators, that they can stay relevant for a longer time and make possibilities that you can monetize directly from the app, but as well increase your reach and engagement. And that's actually, we take a lot of best practices and strategies we use in China right now for TikTok, and it seems to work very well. And a lot of creators are positive about our approach, and that's why we have a lot of new applications from influencers who want to work with us as well. What we see soon on TikTok is, of course, social commerce. That's going to become a bigger role and play a bigger role, definitely in the social media landscape. So I don't think just TikTok will do that, but I think TikTok will be the first one who's going to do it pretty well. They're rolling it out now already in the Western market, in a couple markets with certain users. So that's something which is coming, and this is directly coming from Douyin. But live streaming is becoming more important, I think. Like Twitch is becoming more popular, I think, also besides just gamers. People live streaming on TikTok a lot, and creators are earning money already through live streams as well. So there's a lot, innovating, and we take a lot from those learnings from China, what we have been doing there for the last few years on Douyin. On Douyin, of course, like almost every day there are new features. We try to cover as much as possible. At least I try to cover a lot on my LinkedIn or Twitter from new things which are coming up. But it's going so quickly and it's developing so fast that it's sometimes tough to keep up. But yeah, I think social commerce is becoming very important, even more in China, through live stream, but also through short video. And this will definitely come to TikTok as well. So everybody in Europe better be ready for that, and you better start with it now instead of in 3 years or in a few years or in a few months when it's there. Yeah,
I think that actually applies to most of the industries, and that's exactly why we're doing this webinar series, because we feel that there's not enough knowledge about China, and it's a really good opportunity because they're just not in general, as we know, they're in many aspects a little bit ahead in the digital economy, but also in this specific situation, just because the virus started spreading 2 months earlier. And it's just that the translation is so literal of things that people are experiencing right now in China and how it will probably affect us as well. I mean, the main meme on Chinese social media about the West is currently they can't believe white male people are finally wearing masks. So we just think it's a really good opportunity to go into this, and we're happy that you're also one of the promoters of intercultural learning.
Yes.
There's one question from one of the listeners or viewers. What's the next big thing after Minecraft? Do you see new gaming platforms growing?
Oh, I'm to be honest, I'm not much into gaming itself, so I don't know much about what the next big thing, but you see like Fortnite and these type of games already doing it a lot in the West, and I think this is just coming more. I think people are now getting creative, like, okay, how can I set up something unique? And I think gaming is just a huge industry, so a lot will happen through games more. I think for the big thing, how companies will deal with it, I think that's something what companies have to figure out very quick, to be innovative and adapt very quick to that quick transition. But that's with everything around the virus right now, they have to stay innovative. And this is something, if we can, I am not into gaming, and if we can set this up in 2 weeks, I think like many companies can, who might even have more resources than we had. I think, there's a lot of opportunities, and I think it's for sure important to look at what China is doing. A lot of innovation right now is coming from China, or even Asia in general, where we just have to learn here in Europe from what's happening there, and just take the best bits, what they do there, and try to apply that here, kind of how it was 10, 20 years ago when China did that. We're kind of now.
Yeah, perfect. You summed it up perfectly. This could be our pitch, but Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you very much for tuning in, Fabian.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, we wanted to talk about so many things, and I think we did. And I didn't know that you were in Amsterdam, so that's even more fun, making it more remote. I thought you were in Berlin. Hope to see you again soon. Say hi to Erin, and Marcel is going to post the link for the chat right now. So if anyone wants to join the chat, maybe Fabian, you also want to hang around a little bit longer.
Oh yeah, sure.
Are you posting it already, Marcel?
Yeah, this is kind of a social experiment going on. So we're using software from a Berlin-based startup, which they also just developed during the crisis, and it's basically enabling people to have kind of a virtual networking session. So people can have like one-on-ones or in a circle with a bigger group, and people can have a video call on that. It's quite fun to use.
Cool.
Yeah, usually not everybody is joining, but if you can just jump in the room and see who's there, and kind of replicates the real networking experience, and hopefully we have the real one soon again as lockdown is coming to an end. But
yes,
until then, it's fun to use such kind of solutions.
Oh, good.
Are you gonna
Cool. I will.
Yep,
Okay,
I posted
then I
it.
can
Yep.
quit.
Cool.
Okay. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Yes.
See you
Thank
around
you.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.